The security guard's hand found my sleeve the same second the bassist froze on a sour. Conversations clipped mid-laugh, glasses hovered in the air, and every face in the rehearsal dinner finally had a place to look. I didn't pull away. Years of carpentry taught me that pressure reveals what's crooked. You don't panic at the creak. You listen. Sir, the guard said, careful as a man testing a stud through drywall. I'll have to ask you to step outside. I kept my voice level. Before I go, I said, someone should open the envelope. No one asked which envelope. Cream paper, red wax seal, initials E and B pressed into it like a promise. The best man, Evan, had it tucked inside his jacket, patting his chest every few minutes like he was checking a heartbeat. He was a decent kid with the wrong mentor. Brandon, my daughter's fiancé, tilted his jaw the way wedding photographers teach men to tilt their jaws. Dennis, he said, using my name like a joke the room was invited to share. Some people can't read a room. I read the room just fine. Crown molding half a degree off level, a hairline crack in the corner pillar, a manager with a clipboard who recognized me because people remember the man who pays deposits. I read my daughter too. Emily, hands tied around a glass, eyes practicing not to cry. 26 and brave, but bravery looks thin under the wrong light. Open it, Evan said, voice small. Brandon's smile tightened. We're not at a will reading. Not yet, I thought. There are more kinds of wills than paper. The wax cracked. My mind slipped to my shop. Saws like a choir, the soft rasp of a hand playing, dust rising in honest light. Above the door, I carved one word. Hope. Not a guarantee. A direction. Evan unfolded the letter. Manager, he read. This is a copy of the venue contract, signed by, Dennis Miller. The manager stepped closer. That's our payer on file, she said, and the room's temperature changed. Brandon chuckled, but it slid off the floor. So he wrote a check. We're grateful. It's more than that, Evan said, swallowing. Addendum A. If the paying party or their invited guests are removed or threatened with removal without cause, the paying party may cancel the event on the spot without penalty and assume control of the booked time block. The chandelier's hum turned into gossip. The guard's grip loosened. Brandon said quickly, that's for the wedding, not rehearsal. Same block, same rules, the manager answered, flipping her clipboard. Respect found my name and stayed there. Keep reading, I told Evan. He did, cheeks flushing. Attached, proof of payment for deposit and balance. Email confirmation of the addendum. Screenshots of text from Brandon to Dennis asking for a short-term bridge after telling Emily he was debt-free. And an email from Franklin Collections about a pending settlement with Brandon's LLC. Emily's knuckles whitened. When she was 10, she carved a tiny heart into her homework table and sobbed that she'd ruined it. I sanded until the heart became a ghost in the grain. Nothing ruined, I told her. Just revealed. The lesson was for both of us. Brandon lifted his hands. We're consolidating accounts. Everyone does it. Don't, I said. Not to him. To the tremor lifting my daughter's shoulders. Breathe, Em. She did. Bodies tell the truth first. Manager, Brandon pressed, we're proceeding. He can leave. Family matter. Not with this addendum, she said. Then, softer to Emily, I won't be part of something that hurts the bride. I let the room settle. Here's what happens, I said. We finish rehearsal. Nobody gets removed. Tomorrow, we talk honestly about names on documents. If there's a good explanation, I'll listen. Brandon muttered, big talk from the help. In my world, the help is a compliment. It means you build what others only imagine. But the word hit the room like a dropped plate. Evan slid the pages back into the envelope and held it like a newborn. Awkward, protective. Play, I told the band. She likes the Motown medley. The music returned, tentative then brave. Motion saved people from choosing sides. I eased to the corner pillar, touched the crack with 2 fingers the way a priest might touch an altar, respectful. Cracks tell the truth about where weight is traveling wrong. Some you stabilize. Some mean starting over. My phone buzzed. Nora H., my lawyer. Lien notice filed this afternoon. Brandon's LLC. Emily listed non-managing member. Call when alone. Pressure, applied cleanly, makes joints confess. Through the glass, I saw our reflections. My daughter swaying under a hand she didn't want. Brandon's mouth near her ear. Promises and threats braided tight. He'd asked me for bridge money twice. I helped once, then stopped. A bridge becomes a loop for men who never intend to cross. I stepped outside into tea-colored floodlights and called Nora. She was all facts. The lien, the risk if Emily signed anything tomorrow, the leverage tonight. You like quiet solutions, she said. Quiet isn't invisible. I know, I said. Back inside, Evan's eyes found mine. The guard studied the exits like that had always been his job. The manager moved in quiet orbits around Emily, an extra planet guarding fragile gravity. I didn't interrupt the song. Timing is a tool. Misused, it splinters. When the music ended, I stepped forward. Let's rehearse toasts, I said lightly. I'll go first. Brandon's lips shaped a no. The manager lifted a cautionary hand. Emily looked at me the way a swimmer looks for the shore and isn't sure it was ever real. I didn't raise my voice. I spoke like I was setting a beam. Before anyone promises anything, I said, we should decide what kind of family we intend to be when the music stops. Silence tightened, not hostile, listening. Somewhere, a server's tray settled with a calm click. The envelope lay under Evan's palm like a small engine idling, ready to move the night anywhere the truth needed it to go. I felt the room's weight travel, through pride, through shame, through the invisible braces we pretend are love. And for the first time that evening, the floor felt level under my boots. The room never recovered from silence. It only pretended to. The band tried to glue rhythm over the cracks, but everyone was listening to paper now. Every rustle of the envelope louder than any bass line. Evan's hands shook. He wasn't used to being the man who read truth out loud. He looked at me for permission. I gave it with a nod. When a beam is straight, you can hang weight on it. I'll keep it short, I said. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize tomorrow. If I'm right, this saves my daughter from signing something she can't sand smooth later. Brandon smirked, spinning his wine glass by the stem. Always dramatic, Dennis. You could build a stage for yourself with all this woodwork talk. I prefer stages that hold, I said. A few guests laughed the way people laugh when the air is wrong. Out of reflex, not humor. Emily stood still, the reflection of the chandelier trembling in her glass of water. Evan started reading again. Addendum B. Any attempt to restrict the payer's physical presence without cause transfers event control to payer. The manager stepped closer, clipboard in hand. That's valid, she said quietly. I signed off on that clause myself. Brandon's voice hardened. It's rehearsal, not the wedding. The rule doesn't apply. Same block, same contract, she replied. For a heartbeat, nobody breathed. Then a woman near the bar whispered, So he owns tonight? And the whisper ran around the tables like fire across sawdust. I didn't raise my tone. No one owns a night, I said. We just decide what kind of people we are in it. Evan turned another page. Attached screenshots. Brandon requesting a short-term bridge loan after claiming to be debt-free. His eyes lifted, sorry to be the messenger. And an email from Franklin Collections confirming a settlement proposal on his LLC, listing Emily as a non-managing member. A single fork clinked against a plate. That sound will stay with me longer than any song. Brandon laughed, but the sound cracked halfway. That's business. It's all legal. Legal doesn't mean clean, I said. And a man should warn the woman he's asking to sign beside his debts. Emily's eyes filled with the kind of tears that make no mess, just shine. You said it was paperwork for the venue, she whispered. It is. Brandon grabbed her hand. Dennis is twisting it. The manager cut in. Ma'am, you don't have to sign anything you haven't reviewed line by line. I can recommend counsel if needed. That broke the crowd's spell. Guests shifted, chairs scraped. Morality remembered it had legs. I lifted my glass. To truth, I said. May it always cost less than lies. Glasses rose, hesitant but present. Brandon didn't drink. He whispered something sharp to the guard, but the man only shrugged. Rules, after all, have edges. Evan cleared his throat again. There's a postscript, handwritten. If this envelope is opened because I was removed, consider the event returned, free of charge, to the bride and her guests. People stared. Even Brandon blinked. You're giving tonight back? Emily asked, voice thin as thread. It was always yours, I said. I just rented the walls. The tension in the room shifted, anger thinning into embarrassment. That's how truth works. It rearranges posture before it changes minds. Brandon leaned close, face smooth and dangerous. You think this makes you noble? You're ruining everything she planned. She planned a wedding, I said. You planned a merger. He stepped nearer, close enough that I could smell the cheap cologne he'd bought to smell expensive. You're an old man clinging to pride. Pride built this building, I answered. And I own the receipt. His jaw flexed. You don't scare me. Good, I said. Fear rots fast. Understanding lasts. The band began another song on instinct, a slow soul number that made people remember their manners. Emily let go of Brandon's hand and drifted toward the dance floor like someone walking into clear air. Outside the windows, the night pressed its face to the glass. I could see my reflection beside hers, two people shaped by the same grain but cut in different directions. My phone buzzed. Nora H. Lean confirmed. He filed it hours ago. You were right. I typed one reply. Thank you. She knows now. When I looked up, Evan stood beside me. Sir, he said quietly. I didn't know he'd done that. He told me you were just bitter. Bitterness bends a man, I said. Truth straightens him. He nodded like a student hearing math for the first time and finally believing in it. Across the room, Brandon poured himself another drink he didn't need. The liquid trembled, same as his grip. Emily turned mid-song, found my eyes, and for the first time that night she smiled. Not wide, not for show, just a small, steady line of recognition. That was enough. When the music ended, the manager raised the mic. The bride would like to speak. Brandon tried to intercept, but she waved him off. Emily's voice carried cleaner than I expected. Tomorrow there'll be no signatures, no documents. Not until everything's reviewed. Tonight belongs to the people who stayed kind. She glanced at me. Dad, thank you for reminding me what steady looks like. Applause rose, uneven, uncertain, then real. Brandon muttered something about dramatic families and stalked toward the exit. No one followed. Even the guard looked away. Evan exhaled. Guess rehearsal's over. Not yet, I said. The real rehearsal starts when she decides who helps build her life frame by frame. The chandelier buzzed softly overhead, like a bee trapped inside light. I patted the pillar's crack once more. Some faults you seal, some you leave visible so the next person remembers where pressure once lived. As I stepped outside, the door caught the last echo of the band behind me. Brass, laughter, and the kind of rhythm only honesty can keep. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and signatures and the dry noise of paper. But tonight, for the first time in a long while, the ground beneath us was level. Morning came slow, like a craftsman double-checking every joint before moving on. I'd barely slept. Coffee steamed in my hands while sunlight crawled across the workbench, touching every scar in the wood I'd saved from jobs long finished. Each mark told a story, wrong measurements, fixed mistakes, time teaching patience. At 7 sharp my lawyer called. Dennis, Nora said, voice brisk. I spent half the night digging. Brandon's LLC isn't just leveraged, it's rotted. He funneled vendor payments into a side company under a cousin's name. And the lien he filed? It ties any spouse's property into his defaults. If Emily signs tomorrow, she inherits his anchors. How deep? I asked. 200,000 in outstanding credit. 1 court date next month. He's running out of rope. I set the mug down, watching the steam fold. Then we show Emily the rope before he hangs her with it. Already prepared. Documents are in your inbox. I'll meet you at the venue an hour before the ceremony. When the call ended, the shop went quiet again, the kind of silence that listens back. I brushed sawdust from the word carved above the door. Hope. My late wife, Laura, once teased me for carving it. You can't sell hope, Denny. No, I told her, but you can build it. Now I needed to. By 9, I was parked outside Emily's apartment complex. She came down in a robe and slippers, eyes swollen, hair still pinned from last night's rehearsal. Dad, she whispered, voice cracking. He said you ambushed him, that you humiliated us in front of everyone. I kept my tone soft. Did he mention the lien? She froze. What lien? I handed her my phone, opened to the document Nora sent. She scrolled, lips moving over the legalese until understanding caught up. He used my name? He planned to make you responsible for his company's debts once the vows were done, I said. Quietly. Efficiently. Her shoulders sagged. I defended him last night. I told my friends you misread everything. Good, I said. Now you know what truth sounds like when it stops whispering. Tears came then, silent ones. Why would he? Because people who build nothing need someone solid to lean on, I said. And you're solid, Em. You always were. She pressed her face to my chest like she was 10 again. My shirt dampened against her cheek. I didn't say I told you so. I just held her until the shaking stopped. At 10 we met Nora in the venue's empty hall. She spread the paperwork across the same oak bar where Brandon had laughed hours before. The wood still held the echo of it. Here's your leverage, Nora said. His filings, loan agreements, unpaid taxes, and the venue contract you wrote. You built yourself a fortress without knowing it. Brandon arrived 5 minutes later, sharp suit, sharper temper. Are we doing this circus again? He said, scanning the papers. You had your fun. Sit, Nora said. Her calm had edges. Before anyone walks down an aisle, you'll clarify this lien. He sneered. You lawyers love drama. You'll love bankruptcy less. She slid the top page forward. This proves intent to defraud. You attached your fiancé's name to a company facing active collections. That's not oversight. That's a trap. Color drained from his face. You can't prove I already did, she cut in. Everything's time-stamped. And Dennis here has an email from your own account requesting his bridge funds the day before you filed this lien. That's evidence of intent. He tried to laugh, but it came out thin. You think this saves you, old man? She'll forgive me. Love fixes things. Emily's voice cracked the air like a hammer strike. Love doesn't sign liens. He turned toward her, reaching, but she stepped back. You lied about everything. About the debts, about the business, even about who paid for this place. Brandon's charm fell apart like veneer under heat. You can't prove. I can, I said quietly, sliding my phone across the bar. You used my transfer reference in your fake invoice chain. The bank confirmed it this morning. He froze, eyes darting between us. For the first time, he saw the structure collapsing, every beam pulled, every nail loosened. Nora packed her briefcase. Here's how this goes. You void the lien, sign a withdrawal of claim, and I won't forward this to the district attorney. You've got 2 hours. Brandon's jaw clenched. You're bluffing. Then test the bluff, she said, snapping the case shut. But I'd start writing. He looked to Emily for rescue. She stared at him with that calm fury I'd only ever seen in her mother's eyes. Do what she said, she whispered. Then leave. He did. Shaking hands, furious scribbles, and a signature that trembled more than any line I'd ever cut crooked. When he was gone, Emily sat on the barstool, exhaling everything. It's over, she said. Not yet, Nora murmured. We'll file the withdrawal, but there'll be fallout. People talk. Let them, I said. Truth travels slow, but it gets there. Emily smiled faintly. You planned all this, didn't you? Not this, I said. Just enough structure so the house wouldn't fall when the wind came. She reached for my hand. You always said wood remembers pressure. It does, I said. But it also remembers who fixed it. Outside, morning lights slanted through the cracked window, catching the sawdust in the air like gold. For the first time in years, it felt like the world had weight again. Honest, solid, level. News travels faster than shame. By afternoon, everyone with our last name had an opinion. My sister called first, her voice sugar-coated with concern. Dennis, you could have handled it quieter. Weddings aren't courtrooms. Neither are marriage contracts, I said. But he made them one. Then came Emily's aunt, who had always adored spectacle. It's not about money, she sighed. It's about peace. People forgive if you don't make them look small. He did that himself, I said, and hung up before she could polish the guilt. By evening, the kitchen table looked like a war map, documents spread between coffee mugs, highlighters bleeding into margins. Nora's briefcase sat open, patient as a loaded tool chest. Emily scrolled through messages from relatives. Don't ruin your reputation. Marriage is compromise. Your father should apologize. She read them out loud, voice trembling between disbelief and laughter. They think I should apologize for being lied to. People prefer the story where the liar still gets cake, I said. It keeps their own lies comfortable. She looked at me, eyes rimmed red but steady. Do you regret doing it? Exposing him like that? I thought about it. About the weight of silence. About the way quiet endurance turns into complicity. No, I said finally. I regret not teaching you sooner that kindness and boundaries aren't enemies. She leaned back, exhaling. Mom would have told me to run sooner. She would have waited until she could prove it, I said, and smiled. You've got her logic and my patience. Dangerous combination. At sunset, Nora dropped by again, files tucked under her arm. His lawyer called, she said. They'll withdraw the lien tomorrow morning. He's panicking, but there's talk he's trying to spin this into a misunderstanding. He'll tell everyone I'm a bitter old man, I said. Let him, she replied. Truth ages better than gossip. Still, the idea sat heavy. In small towns, rumors stick like sawdust to sweat. The next morning, the phone calls started again. Cousins, nephews, even my brother. Each conversation followed the same crooked path. He said, she said, you overreacted. At noon, one voice cut through the noise, my mother's. 83, frail but sharper than a chisel. Denny, she said, families survive storms when they remember who built the roof. I closed my eyes. I built it, Ma. I just didn't expect lightning from inside. Then patch it, she said. Don't burn it. That night, I invited them all over, the whole chorus of doubters. 20 chairs circled the shop's workbench. The scent of oak and varnish filled the air, grounding everything in something older than argument. Emily stood beside me, chin lifted. Nora observed from the back like a quiet referee. When everyone had settled, I placed a single sheet of paper on the table, the final withdrawal of lien, signed and notarized. This, I said, is what truth looks like when you give it paperwork. My brother scoffed. So the kid made a mistake. You had to humiliate him? I pointed to the document. A mistake is a misplaced nail. This was an entire wall built crooked on purpose. Aunt Marla crossed her arms. You always were dramatic. Maybe, I said, but I've never watched a beam crack and called it art. Emily spoke then, her voice cutting clean. He used me. My name, my trust, my future. Dad didn't humiliate him. He stopped him. If that makes us dramatic, then good. Drama saves more people than silence ever did. The room went quiet. Even sawdust seemed to hold its breath. Finally, my mother spoke from her corner chair. Well, she said softly, at least I raised a daughter who listens to her father when it matters. Laughter broke the tension, brittle but healing. Someone clapped. Then another. When the room cleared out, Emily lingered by the door. You think they'll forgive me? She asked. They'll adjust, I said. Forgiveness is just understanding with time on it. She smiled, tired but real. I don't know what I'd do without you. You'd build something level, I said. Because you know how now. Later, when the lights were off and the shop was just shadows and memory, I ran my hand over the grain of the old table where she'd carved that heart years ago. I could still feel it, faint, ghosted under the finish. A reminder that damage isn't the opposite of beauty. It's proof that something lived here. Tomorrow, there'd be fallout, angry calls, awkward apologies, gossip that aged like milk. But tonight, I had the quiet rhythm of the clock, the smell of wood and oil, and a truth that no rumor could sand away. The ledger was clear, and for the first time in a long while, so was I. The morning of what should have been the wedding dawned too still. Even the air outside my shop felt suspended, as if waiting to see which way the world would lean. Sunlight crept across the word carved above my door, hope, and caught on the dust like glitter that refused to settle. I brewed coffee strong enough to stand a spoon in. The sound of it pouring filled the silence better than conversation could. My phone buzzed on the counter. A dozen missed calls, most from relatives who had suddenly found religion in other people's mistakes. I ignored them all except one, Nora. Morning, she said. Everything's filed. The lien withdrawal's been accepted. You're clear. Emily, I asked. She's calmer than I expected. Nervous, but firm. She said she wants to go to the venue herself, tie up loose ends, hand back the keys, collect her dignity. Good, I said. I'll meet her there. By the time I arrived, the parking lot was already half full. Word had spread that the ceremony might not happen, and curiosity is cheaper than cable television. The florist van sat crooked near the curb. A few workers leaned on the hood, smoking and waiting for instructions that would never come. Inside, the hall was dressed like a promise someone forgot to keep. Chairs lined in white satin, candles lit, piano tuned, and lonely. Emily stood near the altar in her gown, simple and perfect, no veil. Her hands rested on the bouquet like it was something borrowed, something heavy. Brandon was already there too, pacing in his tailored suit, sweat dampening his collar. When he saw me, the color drained from his face. You just can't stay away, can you? He hissed. Neither can your creditors, I said. They called Nora again this morning. They're eager to talk. Enough, Emily said sharply, turning to him. We're not doing this in whispers anymore. She faced the small crowd, relatives, guests, a handful of reporters who must have smelled scandal from 3 towns away. Her voice was calm, measured. There won't be a wedding today. There will, however, be honesty. The room rippled with confusion. Someone gasped. Brandon tried to take the microphone from her, but she held it like a lifeline. My fiancé, she said, looking straight at him, filed documents attaching my name to his company's debts without telling me. My father discovered it and stopped the wedding. Some of you called that interference. I call it protection. Murmurs rose, half shocked, half embarrassed. Brandon's lawyer, a young man who looked like he still practiced apologies in mirrors, started forward, but Nora stepped in his path. Sit, she said, unless you'd like to make this a press conference. Emily continued. I loved a version of him that wasn't real. I almost signed away my freedom for it. But today I'm signing something else. She lifted a folded paper, the notarized withdrawal of lien, and set it on the podium beside her bouquet. The weight of it echoed louder than any vow could. Brandon lunged forward, hand outstretched. Don't do this. She stepped back. You already did. I saw it happen in slow motion, his jaw trembling, the practiced charm collapsing, his hands opening and closing like he was searching for the script he'd forgotten. The crowd shifted, eyes falling away from him one by one. He tried to speak, but words stumbled out half-finished. You'll regret. No, she said softly. I'll remember. Security moved in gently, not rough, just firm enough to guide him toward the exit. The click of the doors behind him sounded final. When the room finally breathed again, Emily turned to me. What happens now? Now, I said, we clean up. Then we go home. Maybe start building something new. She looked around at the flowers, the lights, the half-forgotten music still cued on the piano. All this for nothing. Not nothing, I said. For learning. For finding the floor under the carpet. She smiled weakly. You always talk like a carpenter. Because everything worth keeping needs fixing first. By afternoon, the venue was empty except for us and the staff packing boxes. I tipped every worker double. One of them, a young guy with a tear tattooed under his eye, shook my hand and said, You're the kind of dad people wish they had. On the way out, I paused beneath the archway where Emily would have walked moments before saying vows that didn't deserve to be said. The sun cut through the stained glass windows, scattering colors across the floor. She stood beside me, still holding the bouquet, petals drooping but beautiful. You know what Mom used to say? She murmured. That real love doesn't need music to sound right. She was right, I said. Silence can be the best melody. Emily slipped her arm through mine. Can we leave, Dad? Yeah, I said. We've been standing on this cracked floor long enough. Outside, cameras flashed, reporters called her name, microphones stretched like hungry mouths. But Emily didn't hide. She raised her head and said only one sentence. My father taught me to measure twice and cut once. Today, I measured. Then she got into the truck beside me, and we drove away while the noise stayed behind. I didn't speak for a while. I just watched the road unwind in the windshield like fresh lumber being planed straight. When we reached the shop, she looked at the door, at that carved word, hope, and smiled. You think you'll ever change it? Maybe someday, I said, when we stop needing it. She laughed through the last of her tears. Then I hope you never do. I opened the door, let her step inside first, and for the first time since her mother died, the house didn't feel too big for just the two of us. The week after the non-wedding felt like the end of a storm. No thunder, just puddles and broken branches that needed sweeping. Emily stayed with me at the house, trading lace and vows for sweatpants and silence. The world outside kept spinning, but ours had stopped just long enough to take inventory. Every morning, she helped me in the workshop. She didn't talk much, only watched, learning how would answers to patience. At first, her hands shook when she held the plane. Then, on the 4th day, the sound of the blade against oak smoothed out, a steady rhythm that filled the room better than any apology could. This is calming, she said once, brushing sawdust from her sleeve. It's control disguised as peace, I told her. You can't change what's done, but you can decide what shape it leaves behind. She smiled faintly. You always make things sound like scripture. What's the oldest scripture I know? Outside, whispers brewed. Brandon had gone quiet online, but loud in rumor. Some said I'd stolen his business. Others claimed Emily ran off with the deposit. None of it mattered, but gossip is like humidity, invisible until you start sweating. Nora advised me to ignore it. You already won, she said. Don't prove it twice. She was right, but quiet victory still needs maintenance. The landlord of the venue called to say half the staff quit after seeing how Brandon treated people. I rehired them for a day's work, no questions asked, to repaint the place and remove his initials from the signage. One of the younger workers asked, "What should we write instead?" I thought for a while, then said, "Hope Workshop, same as the sign above my door. People will remember." They smiled. Maybe they understood that redemption looks better with fresh paint. A week later, a package arrived for Emily. No note, just her bouquet, dried and preserved in glass. She stared at it for a long time. "He sent it," she said finally, "trying to make something pretty out of rot. Let it remind you." I said, "That pretty doesn't mean strong." She placed it on the shelf beside my tools, a relic turned lesson. That Friday, we opened the shop doors to the neighborhood for the first time in years. Free repairs, I'd written on the chalkboard. Bring something broken, leave it lighter. People came, a widow with a cracked chair, a boy with a skateboard, an old man clutching a picture frame held together with tape. Emily worked beside me, sleeves rolled, hair tied back, face steady. Watching her talk to strangers, comfort them through their small losses, I saw the kind of healing you can't buy or borrow. At noon, a familiar voice came from the doorway. Brandon's best man, Evan. He looked embarrassed, older somehow. "Mr. Miller," he said, "I wanted to apologize for not speaking sooner." "You did fine," I said, wiping my hands. "You read the truth when no one else would." He glanced at Emily. "She deserved better. She chose better," I said. Evan handed me a small envelope. "Brandon left town. The creditors are chasing him. He asked me to give you this." Inside was a check, the full refund of the deposit I'd paid for the wedding. No memo, no note. Just numbers and a shaky signature. I folded it once and set it on the bench. "Keep it?" Emily asked. "No," I said. "We'll use it for the shop. Something that lasts." That night, after everyone left, we stood outside watching the sign glow under the porch light. "Workshop of Hope." "You think people will come back tomorrow?" she asked. "They will," I said. "There's always something that needs fixing." She rested her head on my shoulder. "Including us." "We're already fixed," I said. "We just needed sanding." The wind carried sawdust into the street, swirling gold under the lamplight. Somewhere in the distance, a train horn moaned like a long sigh, the sound of leaving and arriving at once. For the first time in months, the weight in my chest shifted from heavy to useful. Quiet victories don't make noise, but they hold the house up just the same. The following weeks felt like breathing through new lungs. The world had a different sound, softer, slower, but alive again. Emily started taking orders for small carpentry pieces, jewelry boxes, birdhouses, frames. She signed them with her initials burned into the bottom, EM. Every time she did, I saw the quiet pride her mother used to carry. But peace never lasts without a test. One afternoon, Nora came by with that look lawyers get when they bring storms wrapped in folders. "Brandon resurfaced," she said, setting down her briefcase. "He's talking to a blogger. He's telling them you manipulated him, that you forged the lien paperwork to ruin his reputation." I didn't flinch. "Let him talk. He's got fragments," she said. "Emails cut out of context, photos from the rehearsal. They'll twist the story for clicks. But we have the truth, the timestamps, the contracts, your original bank transfers." Emily's hand trembled on the workbench. "They'll drag my name again." "They can try," I said, sliding a sandpaper block toward her. "But rumors can't stick to people who keep moving." She exhaled and began sanding, the motion steadying her pulse. "You think we should respond?" "Not yet," Nora said. "Let the noise eat itself. If it escalates, we'll speak through evidence, not emotion." That night, the workshop glowed under the amber bulbs. We sat on stools, both covered in sawdust, our dinner plates resting on a half-finished table. "You ever get tired of being right?" Emily asked suddenly. "Every day," I said. "It's heavy work. You spend half your time wishing you were wrong just to see people smile." She looked at the window, where rain streaked down the glass like moving grain. "I thought I wanted a big life. Parties, recognition, people who looked perfect on paper. But the quiet here feels more honest. It's honest because it costs something, I said. You earn quiet by surviving noise. The noise arrived 2 days later. My phone buzzed nonstop. Messages, tags, half-truths spreading like rot. Brandon's exclusive interview dropped online with a headline that read, "Carpenter father sabotages daughter's happiness." The comments section was an open wound. Half the readers believed him, half didn't, and the rest just enjoyed throwing stones. Emily's lips quivered as she scrolled. They don't even know us. They don't have to, I said. They just need something to shout at. Should we fight back? No, I said. We build. She blinked. Build what? Patience, integrity, and something they can't twist. 3 days later, we got help from an unlikely ally, the venue manager. She'd recorded everything from the rehearsal, Brandon's threats, his orders to remove me, and the moment the contract was read aloud. She'd kept the footage in case of insurance disputes. I think now counts as a dispute, she said with a grin, handing me a flash drive. Nora uploaded it to her firm's drive, sent a single email to the blogger's legal team. Within 12 hours, the article vanished. No apology, no explanation, just deletion. Silence louder than any headline. Emily hugged me when she found out. You didn't even gloat. Gloating's just noise with sugar on it, I said. And I'm off sweets. A week later, a package arrived. Not from Brandon this time, but from one of his old creditors. Inside was a simple letter. Mr. Miller, we've closed our file on Brandon L. at your daughter's request. Your calm cooperation saved her a mountain of trouble. The world could use more men like you. Asterisk. F.C. Legal Recovery Department asterisk. Emily framed the letter beside her first finished jewelry box. Proof, she said. That quiet revenge still leaves a mark. Revenge is the wrong word, I told her. We just fixed what was crooked. She smiled, tracing the burn mark of her initials. Same thing sometimes. That evening, after Nora left and the shop went still, Emily stood by the doorway, the carved word above her head glowing gold under the light. Dad, she said, I used to think hope was just waiting for good things. But it's work, isn't it? It's the hardest kind, I said, because you build it even when nobody helps you hold the beams. She stepped closer, hugging me with both arms, sawdust and all. I'm proud of you. I'm just a carpenter, I said. She pulled back, smiling through tired eyes. No, Dad. You're the man who taught hope to hold a shape. Outside, rain turned to mist. Inside, the air smelled of pine, oil, and new beginnings, proof that not every cut leaves a scar. A month passed before I realized how quiet the phone had become. No lawyers, no creditors, no whispers about the scandal. The noise had burned itself out, leaving behind something rare, stillness with room to grow. Emily moved back into her own apartment downtown. Not to hide, but to begin again. She painted the walls herself, bright cream, then called to ask how to fix a warped cabinet door. I laughed. Loosen the hinges first, I said. Don't fight the wood before you understand what it wants. That sounds like parenting advice, she replied. It is. The shop stayed busy. Folks who had come on repair day kept coming back. They brought new projects, not just furniture, stories, memories, things worth saving. A retired teacher asked me to fix a desk she'd kept since her first classroom. A boy brought a baseball bat split down the middle, wanting it whole again for luck. Each fix felt like therapy disguised as craftsmanship. Hope filled the cracks faster than glue ever could. One afternoon, Emily arrived with a small wooden box wrapped in brown paper. I made this, she said, setting it on the table. It was solid pine, sanded smooth, corners perfect. On top, she'd carved the word truth in block letters. Inside lay a single brass key attached to a ribbon. I looked at her, confused. It's for you, she said. The key to the venue. They insisted you keep it. You paid for that place twice. Once in money, once in patience. I turned the key over in my palm, the metal warm from her hand. What am I supposed to do with it? She smiled. You'll think of something. You always do. That night, after she left, I sat in the workshop long after the lights dimmed. The key gleamed faintly on the bench. I thought about the wedding that wasn't, the humiliation that became foundation, the lies that turned into lessons. An idea formed, slow, deliberate, the way a design appears from raw wood. 2 weeks later, the Workshop of Hope opened its doors not just as a carpentry shop, but as a community space. Saturday mornings, veterans came to learn woodcraft. Sundays, single parents brought their kids to build toy boxes and picture frames. Emily helped every weekend, sleeves rolled, sawdust in her hair. She taught people how to steady the plane, how to listen for the grain's direction. Watching her laugh in that light, I realized she had inherited more than my patience. She'd inherited my peace. On the opening day, she stood beside me as I unlocked the new front door with that brass key. "Feels symbolic," she said. "It is," I answered. "We're opening the same door that once tried to close on us." We stepped inside to applause, the sound of hammers and hope mingling like rhythm and melody. Later that evening, as the crowd left, Emily lingered near the window. "You ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't found the truth?" "All the time," I said. Then I remind myself, truth finds you eventually. It just waits for you to stop pretending not to see it. She nodded. "I still get messages from people telling me they admire what we did. Some call it revenge. I don't know if it was." "It wasn't," I said. "It was correction." She smiled softly. "Then maybe that's better." I reached into my pocket, pulled out a smaller box, and handed it to her. Inside was another key, identical but silver. Her brows furrowed. "What's this one for?" "The workshop's back room," I said. "It's yours now. You've earned it." She hugged me tight enough to make my ribs creak. "You sure?" "Positive," I said. "A good craftsman knows when to pass the tools along." When she left that night, I stayed to clean up, sweeping sawdust into neat piles. The floor gleamed, the benches smelled of oil and pine, and the word above the door, "Hope," caught the last orange light of sunset. I hung the brass key on a nail beside it, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Some locks exist only to teach us we already hold the door. 2 months passed, and spring began to smell like forgiveness. The workshop of hope thrived. Laughter, hammer strikes, sawdust, the sweet noise of people fixing small things to feel whole again. Emily managed most of it now, greeting customers, teaching kids, sweeping the floor the same way her mother once used to hum. Slow, certain, content. I thought peace was permanent until one envelope found its way into the shop mailbox. Thin, cream paper. No return address. My name written in familiar, slanted handwriting. Dennis. Brandon. I almost tossed it. Then I remembered that some lessons don't end until you read the last line. I slit it open with my utility knife, the same one I'd used for 40 years, clean cut, no hesitation. "Dennis, I've lost nearly everything. The business is gone, the account's frozen. My parents won't take my calls. I blamed you for a while because it was easier than blaming myself. You didn't ruin me. I did that when I tried to take what wasn't mine. I wanted respect without earning it. I thought control meant love. I was wrong. I'm leaving town. I just wanted you to know I understand now why you did what you did. You weren't protecting money. You were protecting her. I'd like to apologize to Emily someday, but I'll wait until I'm someone worth forgiving. Take care of her. Brandon." I read it twice, then folded it carefully and set it on the bench beside the brass key. For a moment, I felt nothing. Then, something gentler, the faint ache of closure. That evening, Emily came by after closing, hair windblown, face lit with the kind of smile that meant she'd had a good day. "We got another community order," she said, dropping a folder on the counter. "A local shelter wants 30 wooden beds for kids. We'll need volunteers." "That's the best problem to have," I said. She noticed the envelope. "Who's that from?" "Brandon," I said. Her breath hitched. "What does he want?" "Nothing," I answered. "Just an apology." She hesitated, then reached for it. "Can I read it?" I nodded. She unfolded it, eyes scanning the words slowly. When she finished, she exhaled like someone finally putting down a heavy box. "Well," she said softly, "guess everyone builds something eventually. Even regret." "True," I said, "but some houses collapse right after the foundation's poured." She smiled, not cruelly, just knowingly. "Do you forgive him?" I considered it. Forgiveness isn't an emotion, it's an architecture. You have to decide what you're willing to rebuild. "Maybe not yet," I said, "but I've stopped wishing him failure. That's a start." She folded the letter again, careful not to crease the words. "Can we keep it?" "Sure," I said. "It's part of the grain now." That night, when she left, I locked up and lingered in the quiet. The letter lay between the key and the old heart-shaped mark in the workshop table, one made by a child, one by life. Both carved deep enough to stay. I opened my journal, the one Laura had given me before she passed, and wrote. Sometimes the hardest repairs are invisible. You can't glue trust back together. You just keep sanding until the surface feels smooth again. Then I placed Brandon's letter inside the back cover, not as a wound, but as a blueprint. The next morning, Emily arrived early. I've been thinking, she said, holding 2 cups of coffee. You should start teaching again. Carpentry, craftsmanship, life stuff. People listen to you. I already teach, I said. Yeah, she laughed, but you hide it in stories. Maybe try the straightforward way for once. She had her mother's persistence, polite but immovable. So I agreed. That afternoon, I wrote a flyer. Workshop of Hope, Saturday classes. Learn to fix what's broken, wood or otherwise. Emily tacked it to the window. People stopped to read, smiled, nodded. And just like that, the next chapter built itself. That night, before locking up, I glanced again at the key and the letter. The key gleamed under the light. The paper stayed quiet. Both were proof that endings, handled right, turn into instructions for beginnings. I turned off the lights, pocketed my pen, and whispered to the empty shop, lesson learned. Spring deepened into early summer, and life began to sound like it used to. Only softer, wiser, more deliberate. The Workshop of Hope had become something bigger than a business. It was a heartbeat for the town. People stopped by not only with chairs to mend, but with stories to unload. Broken hearts, burnt bridges, forgotten dreams. Each one found a nail, a plank, a place to belong. Emily ran the mornings now. I handled the evenings. Sometimes we'd pass each other in the doorway, trade a tired smile, and it felt like poetry in motion, 2 halves of one steady rhythm. One Friday, after closing, she stayed behind sweeping sawdust from the corners. You know, she said, I used to hate that smell. Reminded me of long days, of you being too busy for dinner. And now? I asked. Now it smells like home. That stopped me cold. The kind of line that reminds you why you ever built anything at all. The next day, a man in his 50s came in, dressed too neatly for a place that breathed dust and varnish. He hesitated at the door. You Dennis Miller? I am, I said, wiping my hands. He held out a hand. Name's John. I'm Brandon's uncle. For a second, the air thinned. Then I shook his hand. He all right? John nodded. Getting there. He's sober now. Working construction upstate. He sent me to thank you. Said you're the first man who ever made him see himself without the mirror lying back. I didn't know what to say, so I nodded and handed him a small carved piece from the bench. A smooth circle of oak, with one word etched into it. Fixing. Give him this, I said. Tell him it's not decoration, it's instruction. John smiled faintly. He'll understand. When he left, Emily stepped out from the back room. Was that who I think it was? Yeah, I said. You okay? I am, I said. Because he's trying. That's more than I expected. Weeks turned into a rhythm again. Mornings full of sanding, laughter, radio music, evenings heavy with reflection. One night, I sat at the old table, the one with the faint ghost of her carved heart, and started carving another word beside it. Memory. The letters came slow, deliberate. I thought about Laura, about Emily, about the nights when I thought silence meant defeat. It didn't. It meant patience. I thought about Brandon's letter, now framed on the wall beside the first flyer for the Workshop of Hope. Both reminders that even ugly wood can be made into something lasting. When I finished carving, I rubbed oil into the grain until it gleamed under the shop light. The old heart and the new word shimmered together like 2 truths that finally agreed on something. That weekend, Emily hosted an open night at the shop, free lessons, live music, pie from the cafe down the street. The whole town came. The laughter was warm, unforced, genuine. Halfway through the evening, she climbed onto a stool, clapped her hands, and called for quiet. I want to thank my dad, she said, for building this place, not just the walls, but what it means. You all know the story, or pieces of it. But what matters isn't what we lost. It's what we built afterward. She looked at me. He taught me that revenge doesn't fix things. Patience does. Dignity does. Hope does. The room clapped, loud and long. I felt my throat tighten. When she stepped down, I pulled her into a hug. You've got your mother's way with words, I whispered. She smiled. And your way with wood. Later that night, When everyone had gone and the lights hummed low, I sat alone on the stool, watching the dust float in the lamplight. Every speck caught a piece of gold from the glow. That's when I realized, time doesn't erase the scars in the grain. It polishes them until they shine. I reached for the small brass key hanging near the door. It caught the light, warm and patient, just like the life it had opened. I whispered to the empty room, "You did good, old man." And for the first time since losing Laura, since betrayal, since every storm that thought it could bend me, I believed it. The shop creaked softly, like wood remembering pressure and finally sighing free.